stories for you today. The first thing is obviously the FSSP. I mean, I'll get to that later, but it's interesting. A lot of people have a lot of reactions on it. So that's not the first thing. The first thing is I'm going to priests who are crazy, um, priests who oppose the Catholic faith, bishops oppose the Catholic faith, and the first one is a priest. Uh, Ahead of the high profile conference on the priesthood in the Vatican, prominent Jesuit canonist Father Gianfranco Ghirlanda has cautioned against the risks of social media and excessive attachment to outward devotions. Spiritual worldliness, he said, means hiding behind external forms of devotion, liturgical correctness, orthodoxy to the bitter end, of always correct manners, of always being in order, but to protect one's own search for security and personal benefit. He said, it is an obsession with outward details, such as fancy cufflinks on the sleeves of a shirt, and is a spiritual attitude that can lead to careerism, losing sight of the fact that the ministry is a service for others and not for oneself. So he said spiritual worldliness means liturgical correctness, orthodoxy to the bitter end. What? And this is a priest. Of course, he's a Jesuit. He belongs to the Jesuit religion, not the Catholic religion. Pope Francis splits the CDF in two, the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith. Last Monday, he split the internal structure of the Vatican's doctrine office into a doctrinal section and a disciplinary section. In January of 2019, the tasks of the Ecclesia Dei Commission were moved under the doctrinal section of the CDF. The doctrinal section also includes promoting studies related to the transmission of the faith at the service of evangelization so that its light may be a criteria. Oh, this is a Pope Francis quote. So that its light may be a criterion for the understanding of the meaning of life, especially in the face of the questions posed by the progress of the sciences and the development of society. You hear about doctrinal development, and there are debates. Can doctrine change? If you say yes, you're not a Catholic. And I don't know if that's where this is headed, but it might be. The Ecclesia Dei section here, I included that because they're under one of these two sections. I don't know what they're under now. If they're under the doctrinal or the... Oh, okay, they are under the doctrinal section. But splitting these apart, I don't really know what this means. I thought it was interesting, though, and obviously with Pope Francis, you always have to read between the lines. Sometimes you can figure out exactly what he's planning, and sometimes you can't. But you know there's something. All right, we're moving to the LMNOP portion of this newscast, and there's quite a bit of it. And isn't that interesting? Because you know St. Paul has some strong things to say about LMNOP, but I don't know. Priest. So a priest has something else to say about it. Parishioners worshiping at St. Charles Borromeo Catholic Church in Harlem, New York, are greeted by a framed portrait of Martin Luther King Jr. inside the church. Father Brian Massengale, who sometimes preaches at St. Charles, pursues his ministry in ways that echo both Martin Luther's. As a professor at Fordham University, he teaches African American religious approaches to ethics. Like the German Martin Luther, Massengale is often at odds with official Catholic teaching. He supports the ordination of women and making celibacy optional for Catholic clergy, and as an LMNOP man, he vocally disagrees with the Church's doctrine on LMNOP relations, instead advocating for full inclusion of LMNOP Catholics in the Church. So this guy he opposes the Catholic faith. He's openly LMNOP, which you should be banned. You should be banned from the priesthood. Laicized, I don't know what you call it, but he shouldn't be. Parading around as a priest if he identifies that way. And of course, he supports the ordination of women, making him a heretic. And the celibacy optional, obviously, that's a play for the LMNOPs. They want married priests and they want married LMNOP priests. Stay tuned. More on this information. But this, and there's an LMNO. If I would told you there's an openly LMNOP priest in New York City, who would you think it was? Not this guy. You'd think it was someone else, right? Father James Martin. It's coming. It's a matter of time. Since becoming Universities of San Francisco's rabbi in residence in 2019, Rabbi Camille Angel has been busy, whether she's creating inclusive on-campus spaces, helping to empower students through her classes, officiating Jewish life cycle events, or leading Passover Seders. A Jesuit Catholic university, which is the University of San Francisco, appointing a rabbi in residence was unprecedented, especially when the rabbi is LMNOP. Not really. It's in the Jesuit religion, all are welcome. All faiths are equal. That's what you get. It's the Jesuit church, not the Catholic church. And they say a Jesuit Catholic university. No, it's just Jesuit. It's not Catholic. According to Angel, there is only one Jewish student in her queering religion class of 40. Queering religion. Don't go to college. At least don't go to a Jesuit university. Don't send your kids to a Jesuit university. Absolutely rotten. All right, the other students represent a mix of religious affiliations, but they gravitate to Angel's classes and programs because of the inclusive queer community she has cultivated on campus. Is that what the Jesuits want? Yes. That's why they're not Catholic. And just to clarify here, maybe there are some Jesuits that promote the Catholic faith, that actually believe in the Catholic faith, and they need to leave the Jesuits. Find an order that's Catholic. The Superior General of the Jesuits at one point said the devil is a symbol. Okay, how can you be under obedience to someone that completely far out there, so far out there, he rejects basic principles of the Catholic faith? How can you belong to that religious order? All right, moving to the NFL. Harrison Butker, the kicker for NFL's Kansas City Chiefs, was interviewed by a Catholic news agency. And he was on Taylor Marshall a while ago. Him and the other kicker, Greg Zuerlein? I think that's it. I think that's who it was. Anyway, there's some questions they asked him, and I'm going to read a little bit of what he said, and you can read the full interview. Obviously, all my sources are linked below. CNA says, "You used the word persecuted. Is that how you really feel?" He said, "I do. I feel like I'm almost not welcome in the church for wanting to go to the Latin Mass and for wanting to have a traditional confirmation for my children. I feel like I'm a lesser than Catholic and not part of the church because I want to attend the traditional rite." CNA asked, "What attracted you to the Latin Mass?" So this is Harrison Butker's journey home to the Latin Mass. You can imagine the theme music I have on my journey home videos. But anyway, he said, my alma mater, Georgia Tech, at my alma mater, we had a very reverent Novus Ordo liturgy, and I loved it. It was my first time being exposed to reverent liturgy. I was looking for something that showed the glory of worshiping God, that showed the glory of the sacraments and of the Eucharist. I was looking for something that made me feel privileged to be Catholic, and it wasn't until I had seen the reverent liturgy, seen a priest that was preaching the faith wholeheartedly up on the pulpit, that I really embraced the faith. I saw the beauty of it, and then as I kept searching for more reverence, more beauty, and asking where did all this stuff come from, it took me to the Latin Mass. There you go. And that's when I started seeing the other traditional sacraments. So that was kind of my journey down the line. But if we believe this is the church that Jesus Christ established for us to be able to have access to forgiveness through the sacraments, to get our way to heaven through all of these means of receiving grace, and it should be recognizable. And I really didn't recognize it during the Novus Ordo Mass. Whoa! Even when it was celebrated reverently, you just still see the differences between the two, especially with the prayers that have been taken out, the saints that have been taken out, the priest's mannerisms and how they celebrate. All these things were just removed. And it doesn't seem like it was an organic development at all. It just seems like a complete rupture of what the Roman Rite was able to develop into. Wow! These are strong words coming from a high profile figure. But his journey home to the Latin Mass, he starts saying, well, and you know what? If you've been attending the Latin Mass regularly, you just see it. You don't want the Novus Ordo. Pope Francis decentralizes power to bishops' conferences. So this is from Vatican News, and like I said, read between the lines. Among the specific areas touched upon by the changes are the erection of interdiocesan seminaries, the plan of priestly formation produced by episcopal conferences, the order of consecrated virgins, and the publication of regional catechisms. Publication of regional catechisms is significant because the bishops' conferences are going to have more power for that. And what have we been hearing in Germany? Oh, we need to be more inclusive to LMNOP. Well, guess what? They're going to change that part of the catechism. In the United States, Cardinal Tobin has already said that he wants to change the part of the catechism that says LMNOP is objectively disordered. And if you're looking at interdiocesan seminaries and the plan of priestly formation, and these are decided by the bishops' conferences, oh, that's bad. Do you want the USCCB? Do you want the USCCB kind of forming? Do any of these guys? Do you want any of these bishops really deciding any of this stuff? Priestly formation produced by episcopal conferences. Do you want them to decide that? I mean, they've failed for 50 years. In Iowa, there's a new series called A Pastoral Approach to Gender in Davenport's diocesan newspaper, The Catholic Messenger, and it talks about those who suffer from gender confusion. Questions regarding youths and adults who identify as the wrong gender continue to arise in society and the church. Acknowledging this reality, Bishop Thomas Zinkula formed a committee 10 months ago to consider drafting a policy to help guide Catholic schools, parishes, and others in their interactions with these disordered persons and their families. He said, we need to approach this issue with humility. Yeah. And so I read through this article, and it was talking about, accompaniment, dialogue, accompaniment. Never once did I see the word disordered. Vatican's Jeffrey Sachs supports teaching LMNOP marriage and gender confusion to kids. So as you know, Jeffrey Sachs is very close to Pope Francis. He's involved with some pontifical organization. And here's some of the quotes that he recently said. He said, we see as well many bills as opposed to legislation, or not bills meaning legislation, requiring teachers to report to their parents, to parents if their children are asking questions about their gender identity. So it really puts teachers in an impossible situation in a contemporary high school or middle school. Even earlier in elementary school, these sorts of topics arise, and in particular, it would put LMNOP teachers in a really difficult situation where they're forced essentially to disguise their identity or the status of their relationships in order to fend off running afoul of these bills. Wouldn't he be surprised to find out that there is a contract that teachers sign for Catholic schools to say that they will uphold the teachings of the Catholic faith? Wouldn't he be shocked, and wouldn't he be outraged? Well, this is a good friend of Pope Francis. and with Catholic priests rejecting Catholic teaching on this issue, what do you expect non-Catholics to follow, you know? All right, so this is an interesting topic that I'm going to bring up. So I was reading a tweet by Diane Montana who said, she talked a little bit about the Montana bishop's situation. I forget what his name was, but he told the Latin Mass community that he wouldn't, that they would be able to keep their Latin Mass. Just a few months later, he canceled it, and she said, he cited pressure. And so I asked the question on Twitter. I said, is someone in the Vatican personally calling these bishops and directing them to cancel TLMs? And Taylor Marshall responded to my tweet, and he said, yes. So what does that mean? Does that mean the Vatican's calling these bishops and telling them to cancel TLMs, the Latin Mass? I don't know. There was a bishop persecuted for upholding church teaching. Bishop Bernardo Alvarez Alfonso, 72 years old, said LMNOP acts are a mortal sin in a TV interview. He said that LMNOP as a sexual addiction is comparable to alcoholism. Radical activists launched an online campaign against Alvarez, and he backed down and apologized to the LMNOP people for his unsuccessful statements, saying a more detailed explanation would have been helpful. I don't think you need to detail anything else. I think that's pretty straightforward. On February 16th, the local police summoned Alvarez for a hate crime and questioned him for 1.5 hours. So step up in Brazil. Good job for preaching the Catholic faith, but man. Okay. The seminary database. We'll talk a little bit about this. A U.S. Bishops' Conference, this is from the Pillar. The U.S. Bishops' Conference draft policy update on seminary formation does not incorporate a call to build a national screening database of applicants to seminaries and religious orders. Advocates say a database could help flag problem seminary applicants before they are accepted by tracking rejected applications from seminaries or religious orders along with those applications deferred or withdrawn. The database was proposed to the U.S. Bishops' Conference by an Ohio seminary nearly 6 years ago, but there has been no apparent move toward adopting it. So what it means is that, say, a seminarian is kind of a creepy person, and he gets rejected from one seminary, but then he gets embraced by Newark, New Jersey, or Chicago, or Washington, and later he turns out to be, what do you know, a predator. And the seminary that rejected him, they could have shared that information. Now, not that any of those other places really care. Maybe they do for the bank account reasons, but they don't really care in terms of LMNOP. So if that was the reason why he was rejected, so the idea with the database is that seminaries could share this information. Or on the other hand, if a seminarian has a disagreement, say like the one in New York, there was that seminarian who he actually ended up losing his lawsuit, but he sued Cardinal Dolan because Cardinal Dolan sent him to the Pontifical North American College in Rome, which is known as a hotbed for LMNOP activity, and he eventually quit because he was sick of it. And he sued Cardinal Dolan. Now, if he were to quit, then they could just say, okay, he quit because he was sick of, or they could have his information listed in there. So if he went to another diocese, which he should have just tried to go to a diocese with a good bishop. I mean, that I don't see a problem with that. And they would have rolled over his credits. They would have transferred his credits. But if he would have done that and there was a database, then it wouldn't show any red flags. Maybe it would. I mean, maybe they'd make something up to kind of, undermine him And so maybe the database is a bad thing, but it seems like the database idea, the pillar really likes it, and it could potentially help weed out really bad candidates. And they said that it's especially difficult to weed out women who pretend to be men. Maybe, I don't know, just a thought. All right, Chicago. I mean, it's this Chicago. It's just, what an embarrassment. I mean, Cardinal Supich is such an embarrassment to the Catholic faith. A principal at a Catholic school was placed on administrative leave after he defied the Archdiocese of Chicago's mandate to and will not return to the and he will not return to the school. So this is a development in the story because I had reported that he was suspended. Now there's a little bit of backstory here. Father Martin Marin, pastor of Queen of Martyrs Church in Evergreen Park, Illinois, shared the news in a letter to the community of Queen of Martyrs Catholic School following a meeting with the suspended principal, Jacob Matthias. Matthias and Marin said in a letter, Matthias and I met to discuss the events of the past week. I told him that despite everything, I hoped we could agree on a path forward that would enable him to return as principal to Queen of Martyrs School. Keep in mind here, University of Chicago eliminated their mandate just a few days after this principal said, nope, I'm not going to force my kids, my students to cover their faces whenever Chicago public schools aren't even having this strict of a policy. And it was just a few days later, Chicago reversed their policy and they made it so that this principal was justified. So according to Father Marin, he informed the principal Matthias he would be welcomed back as principal under the condition that he, quote, take some fair and reasonable steps that will repair the breach his actions created in our parish and school community, as well as our sister schools in the Archdiocese. Principal Matthias declined to accept these conditions, and said Father Marin, and as a result, will not be returning to our school. So this is completely rotten. This is completely moronic. I mean, there's nothing else to say about this. Absolutely unbelievable. Take fair and reasonable steps to repair the breach his actions created in our parish and school community. What was the breach? Was he not complying with the government? Oh no, he was complying with the government's restrictions, as well as our sister schools in the Archdiocese. Looks like the only breach that was made was this principal who was doing the right thing. And I don't even know that he's a conservative Catholic. I mean, I don't know anything about him. But this priest is saying, oh, he's creating division. And this is just a typical liberal tactic. Unbelievable. Although, is it really that unbelievable? It's in the Archdiocese of Chicago. Anything's possible. We're getting to the main news story here, the FSSP. And I have a lot of opinions on this. I have a lot of different thoughts running through my head. I'm going to read you the FSSP's statement. On Friday, February 4th, 2 members of the priestly fraternity of St. Peter were received in a private audience by Pope Francis for nearly an hour. During the very cordial meeting, they recalled the origins of the fraternity in 1988. The Pope expressed that he was very impressed by the approach taken by its founders, their desire to remain faithful to the Roman Pontiff, and their trust in the Church. He said this gesture should be preserved, protected, and encouraged. What gesture? He was impressed by the desire to remain faithful to the Roman Pontiff, and that the gesture should be preserved, protected, and encouraged. Notice he wasn't saying that in regards to the Latin Mass. In the course of the audience, the Pope made it clear that the institutes such as FSSP are not affected by the general provisions of the motu proprio Traditionis Custodes, since the use of the ancient liturgical books was at the origin of their existence and is provided for in their constitutions. That's a point that the FSSP and the Institute have made. The Holy Father subsequently sent a decree signed by him dated February 11th, the day the fraternity was solemnly consecrated to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, confirming for the members of the fraternity the right to use the liturgical books in force in 1962, namely the Missal, the Ritual, Pontifical, and the Roman Breviary. Grateful to the Holy Father, the members of the FSSP are in thanksgiving for this confirmation of their mission. They invite the faithful who feel close to them as a spiritual family to attend or join them in prayer at the Mass tomorrow on the Feast of the Chair of St. Peter to pray for the Supreme Pontiff. Okay, so basically this means the FSSP and the other Ecclesia Dei institutes, they're not affected by the motu proprio. But what does that mean? Because there has been rumblings that this Ash Wednesday crackdown is coming against the Ecclesia Dei institutes. Is it just a rumor? I mean, it is just a rumor because nothing happened yet, but that's not very long. That's not very far off. And what does to me, it's just all kinds of confusing. People are celebrating this. Now, they've already been beaten down. It looks like they're going to be able to do traditional ordinations. Now, what about traditional confirmations? It looks like that might be a possibility too. And I guess who's going to be hurt the most in this? Diocesan Latin masses? I think they might be. The crackdown on Ash Wednesday, that it's just a rumor right now, but I keep going back to that and I'm saying, what's going to happen with that? Because apparently it was supposed to be a crackdown on Ecclesia Dei communities, and a lot of the rumors were saying it could be similar to the policy in place in the Archdiocese of Chicago, where they're going to be required to give a pinch of incense to the Novus Ordo, or they're required to say the Novus Ordo on first Sundays or something like that. So my reaction here is surprise, and I'm kind of thinking, like, what is this? Like, what's going to happen? Because I don't think this is the end. Like, I don't think that's it. Case closed. At the very least, it doesn't appear that they can have or open new parishes at the FSSP. So that's a big drawback. And plus, what did Pope Francis say to the SSPX Superior General? We've been waiting for that, and there's been nothing yet. No information on that. So this is good news right now for the FSSP, but things could change in less than 2 weeks. I don't know. I really don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know. Please accompany me off a cliff. No thanks. That's all right. But if everyone else jumped off a bridge, would you? Blind obedience, right? I think my last story here is Pittsburgh. Bishop Zubik to have surgery. Bishop David Zubik is scheduled to have surgery Monday to repair a significant tear in his left shoulder. After the surgery, Bishop Zubik, age 72, said his arm will be incapacitated for about 6 weeks, followed by physical therapy. Full recovery will take 6 to 8 months. So he's going to be out of commission for a little while. He has had 4 back surgeries, the most recent in August 2019. In that procedure, the bishop underwent a spinal fusion to address continuing problems with collapsing discs. Just reading that kind of made me cringe, because that sounds very painful, and he may take an early retirement based on this information. If he's continuing to have problems with his back, he's gonna be forced to take an early retirement. Now, Bishop William Wolterscheid is one of the auxiliary bishops in Pittsburgh, and he's very friendly towards the Latin Mass. And so at least in Pennsylvania, this could be pretty significant. And if he is able to take over, typically auxiliaries don't take over as the bishop of the diocese. They don't just step right in, even though it would make sense, right? Because they're in the diocese and they kind of have an idea of what's going on. It would be a pretty seamless transition, as seamless as a seamless garment, right? But no, and that's the same thing in Phoenix, where Bishop Olmsted is going to be retiring, and he has an auxiliary bishop, Bishop Eduardo Alvarez, who is pretty solid. He's a fan of the old mass. He's very pro-life. He would be a solid bishop for Phoenix, but I mean, Phoenix has a few potential bishops that could take over there that are rotten. I mean, they're close to San Diego. They could get McElroy's rotten auxiliary bishop. I mean, he's McElroy Part 2. Dolan, Bishop John Dolan. He's the auxiliary bishop in San Diego, and he's basically the same thing as McElroy. All the ridiculous, heretical ideas that McElroy pushes, Dolan is a supporter of the LMNOP. It's bad, but then to the south, they have a very young bishop. He's about 60 years old in Tucson. Bishop, I'm not sure. I forget his name. But he has 6 LMNOP friendly parishes in his diocese, according to New Ways Ministry. So take care of what's in your own diocese, As for this FSSP news, I'm not really optimistic about it. I mean, will there be a crackdown in a few weeks? And what's it going to involve? And I think if Pope Francis told them the motu proprio doesn't apply to them, then it applies to diocesans. And this means that basically no diocesan priest, according to the Vatican, should be saying the Latin Mass at all, really. I mean, and you see that these bishops, a lot of these bishops are cracking down on the reverent Novus Ordo. So they say you have to say Mass facing the people. You can bless people with a guitar. 1 second. Let me pause this here. And I'm not going to bless you, but give me 1 second here. Okay. So, did you see that video of the priest who blessed people with a guitar? I mean, isn't that insane? So, I have a ukulele. All right, so what I need to do is I need to get in touch with Parent Ryan and let him borrow this, and then he can give you a blessing. I don't know if he'll do like, he'll wave his hands or cast a spell on you, do the Wiccan blessing or whatever. Or maybe he can do like the guitar, the what would you call it? The John Lennon. Is John Lennon the one who sings Imagine? He could do the John Lennon blessing with the guitar. He could say Imagine no religion, right? So, anyway, all right. Thank you for sticking around for that ridiculousness. And yeah, check it out. I'm going to be doing, will Parent Ryan bless my dream catcher? I mean, you don't need it. So, all right. Anyway, this has been EVTN News. Thank you so much for watching. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.